Well, there's been a lot of research, longitudinal, serious research over the decades, and it's very clear, it couldn't be clearer. Children raised by married parents vastly outperform children who weren't. On every scale. On average, they're happier, healthier, more successful, they're paid more, they're not in jail, they graduate. So we should be very concerned about a new Senate report. It shows the demise of two-parent households has accelerated dramatically in this country. One notable collapse is the percentage of young women who are married. That's dropped from 71% in 1962 to 42% in 2019. The result of this, people aren't getting married, but they're still having children. That means a massive uptick in out-of-wedlock births. Out-of-wedlock births rose from 5% of all births in 1960 to 40% of all births today. Heather McDonald is the author of The Diversity Delusion. She studied these trends carefully, and we're happy to have her on the show tonight. So Heather, the first thing I notice, and I think the science on this is so clear, I don't think there's even a debate about it, but I noticed that in affluent neighborhoods like the one I've spent a lot of my life living in, not one person will judge out-of-wedlock births, but there are no out-of-wedlock births. Everyone's married and has kids within marriage. What does that tell you?
It tells you that the elites have lost faith in the bourgeois values that they practice but are not willing to articulate because they believe that somehow they're associated with white supremacy. We've been hearing a lot, Tucker, about this white privilege meme. That's a poisonous fiction. Here's the real class divide in this country. And sadly, it's also a race divide. The likelihood of growing up with two married parents. I'm going to break a massive feminist taboo here and say that males matter, that fathers matter, that fathers bring a set of values and norms to child rearing, whether it's self-reliance or self-discipline, honor and courage, on average, that complement what mothers can bring.
Of course.
And when you lose that symmetry and that emotional support for children that goes so far beyond economic support, which is largely irrelevant. It's the question. It's the fact that you have twice as much kinship support, and people, the two parents can spell each other when one is exhausted. That's what results in successful children. And the anarchy that we've lived through with the looting and the rioting of the last month, Tucker, has been preceded by a more slow motion anarchy and breakdown, which is the breakdown of the family, because our prisons today are filled almost exclusively with fatherless men.
I can't think of any national politician who would say that. I mean, Barack Obama talked about fathers. I don't think he ever once mentioned marriage, because unmarried mothers are a core constituency in his party. Other than maybe, I'm serious, Kanye West, I can't think of anybody who's ever said anything like that. Why?
The feminists rule our discourse. You're not allowed to say that men matter. I mean, it's just, you believe survivors, believe that they live in a rape culture. I will say, though, that before he was elected president, Barack Obama in 2008 gave a Father's Day speech from Chicago that I urge all your listeners, but I urge in particular the so-called progressives to read, where he gave the facts that you started with, Tucker, about the much greater chance that fatherless boys end up in prison, end up out of school, end up in gangs. Sadly, Obama did not act on that speech, and the Republicans have not been much better. Part of the problem is that so many of them, if they were married initially, are now divorced. So it's a hard thing to turn this around, but we have to, because the breakdown of the family is the biggest civilizational catastrophe that we're facing today, that is the root of the spiraling crime, insane drive-by shootings that we see in the inner city, and the lack of the destruction of human potential.
I couldn't agree more. The science is completely clear. And by the way, just because you're divorced doesn't disqualify you from telling the truth. If you drink too much, doesn't mean you want your kids to be alcoholics. I mean, the whole personal is political, identity is everything, is just one of the dumbest ideas we've ever internalized, and we have internalized. Yeah. Heather McDonald, really one of our smartest guests ever. Great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.